Welcome to this CERL how-to video. This video is about editing in the Provenance Digital Archive, or the PDA. The Provenance Digital Archive is a tool. If you have created a digital image of provenance evidence from a book, you can store the image in the Provenance Digital Archive and attach a short description with details of the provenance information and the book. On the slide are links to the Provenance Digital Archive and our guidelines for editing. The PDA is hosted in the archives.org environment, which in itself is part of Braille Publishers Leiden. Archives is a subscription service, but the CERL PDA section in Archives is free, both the searching and the uploading of your images. All descriptions that you supply are published as CC0, and all images are published as IIIF. There are other sections in Archives, and as I said, these are part of a subscription service. If your library is a member of Archives, the CERL PDA will be shown in the wider context of that subscription. The Provenance Digital Archive was created by Marieke van Delft, who works at the Koninklijke Bibliotheek, the National Library of the Netherlands. She's a long-standing member of the CERL Executive Committee and chair of our Provenance Working Group. The PDA was launched at a CERL conference in Venice in 2018. This event, where Marieke van Delft gave a presentation about the PDA, was recorded, and her presentation is available on YouTube. Now that we know that the PDA exists, how do we get in and what do we do there? If you want to access the PDA, you can go to archives.org. On the screen, in the top left corner, you will see the colorful Archives logo, below it the icon class logo, and underneath there, in blue, CERL Provenance Digital Archive. Click on that line and you will be invited to log in using your Google account or your Facebook account or your ORCID account. Once you have entered that information, you arrive at this screen where you have access to the editing facility here on the brown button, or you can enter a search into the search field to examine the material that is already in the PDA. Searching. Now, if you have an unidentified mark, say you have this roundel stamp in black ink with a V and an F, you can enter VF in the search box. And when you've done so, you find one example with a book that seems to have the same stamp here. If you click on that particular image, you will be sent the full record, and there it will identify the stamp as the stamp of the University of Freiburg in Breisgau. You can also search on an icon class number or on a word. For example, you have a bookplate with the initials GVO, and you don't really know who that refers to, but you do notice that there is on this Ex Libris helmet. So if you enter the word helmet into the PDA, you will given 8 books that have an Ex Libris or a bookplate with a helmet on. If you look very carefully, you will see that this one looks similar to the one that we have in hand. If you click on that particular item, you will be given the full record. In this case, it is the bookplate of Gerrit van Orten, who was a famous Dutch medievalist who in himself created a very large database of incipits and explicits for medieval manuscripts from the Low Countries. You are invited to upload your own provenance images, and if you want to do some editing in the PDA, I would recommend you read the guidelines. It's not a long document, it's about a page and a half, and it will help you to create records that are similar to those created by other editors, and this in return will ensure that the cross-searching is as seamless as possible. When you start with your work, I would recommend you upload your image first. This means you won't forget at the end of having created your description. Once you've uploaded the image, you can start filling out the fields that describe the provenance evidence. Now, if your book is in MEI or HPP or ISTC, you can collect bibliographical information for your item from one of these databases, and that means that automatically bibliographical data will be supplied in fields later on. The way to find your book is to click on either the blue HPP or MEI or ISTC link, and once you've retrieved your document, your item, you can click enter, and the HPP, MEI or ISTC number will appear in this source URL box. Once you've done that, you could create your own caption description where you briefly and succinctly describe the type of provenance that you will be describing. The next element of editing is, where did you find the provenance evidence? First, you enter the institution name for the item in which the provenance was found. If you start typing, then we will supply you with a suggestion for a name of an institution. If that's the correct institution, you can click enter. Once you've done that, you enter the shelf mark of your item. Then there is a drop-down menu that allows you to select the place where you found the provenance. So it will say things like on the spine, on a fly leaf, back paste down, things like that. And there is another drop-down menu where it allows you to identify what type of provenance you have in your hands. So it could be a binding, it could be decoration, it could be a manuscript annotation or an ex libris or a book plate. Finally, bibliographical details for the item. So if you were able to identify the item in the HPP or ISTC or MEI, then this information will have been supplied automatically. If not, this is where you enter the information about the title of the work and the author of the work. Next is a description of your provenance mark. If there is text in the provenance mark, such as a motto or an ownership mark or manuscript annotations, then you can record the transcription here. Next, there are two drop-down menus, one for language and one for century. Language allows you to identify the language of the provenance information that you have just transcribed, and the century gives a rough indication of when the transcription was added to your book. If you have a precise date, then you can enter it in this box here. Next, you are asked to add an icon class code. The reason that icon class is helpful in this context is that it is language neutral. So you enter a numerical code, and this can be useful in a Spanish context, a Portuguese context, a Russian context, Hungarian, whatever. Now we can imagine that not everybody knows icon class very well. So what we've done is we've created an information button here with question mark that allows you access to most of the codes that are used in the PDA. If you want to give further information or you want to give a more detailed icon class code, then icon class has a website where you can search for figures in your image and find the appropriate icon class to go with it. And the last bit of editing has to do with the technique of the provenance mark. So you can say, is it a blind stamp? Is it an illumination? Is it a drawing? Then we ask you to identify the width and the height of the provenance mark. And we ask you to record the place of use of the provenance mark. And if you know it, the former owner. Now for both place of use and former owner, they can be retrieved from the CERL thesaurus. So when you start entering information in that box, we will start giving you a suggestion from the CT. If no name pops up when you're typing in a name, you could try a different spelling. And if then you still do not have a suggestion from the CERL thesaurus, you can create your own new item by clicking on the pale green button here. You will then enter a form, and the form will allow you to create a new place here, or a form owner, or an organization that owned an item. You enter the place name or the other information. Perhaps you want to leave a comment, and then you press the green button to enter that data into the CERL thesaurus. That data will then be available for you and for other editors going forward. If you have all the information about your provenance item except for the actual owner that is and that you have been trying to identify, then you can still use the PDA. You enter all the description of the provenance information plus the image, and then you are able to click on this box here where it says display this item in the Can You Help forum. That means that your information that you've provided will be available through the red link here on the screen. And there are at the moment already 36 question marks where we have information about a provenance item, but we have not been able to identify the human that is attached to that provenance item. When you've completed all the steps, this is what the record will look like. We're back in the searching environment of the PDA. In the top right-hand corner is a box where you can leave an annotation. For example, if you have been able to identify an unidentified provenance mark. All records are provided with a persistent URL, and you can copy that link by clicking on this purpley button. And all images have been provided with a URL as well, which you can copy here on the top left-hand corner, so that you can view the images in your image viewer, for example, Mirador. Finally, the records have some details about transcription, institution, location, and the types of record, types of provenance information. And there are icon class numbers that have been identified by whoever described this provenance information. We warmly invite you to contribute your provenance instances to the Provenance Digital Archive. If you would like to be in touch with CERL or know more about what the Consortium of European Research Libraries does, you can go and check the website www.cerl.org, visit us on Twitter, read our blogs, or write to me directly at marianlefferts@cerl.org. Thank you very much.